welcome to the deep dive. Today we've got these stories, three stories, and they all kind of point to this idea that age really is just a number when it comes to going after what you love.
Right, like you can be passionate at any age.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to be hearing about a psychotherapist who ended up becoming a filmmaker, a former intelligence officer who found himself on the dance floor, and a diner owner whose pies became like this symbol of community.
It's really inspiring to see these individuals who later in life didn't just kind of discover new interests, but they actually used them to have a real impact. You know what I mean?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So let's start with Allegra.
Okay.
She actually left her whole career as a psychotherapist to go make a documentary about Granny D,
Oh, wow.
who you might remember as this 90-year-old activist who walked across America to advocate for campaign finance reform.
I do remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that Allegra faced a lot of pushback, even from Granny D's own team.
Really?
Yeah. It's like, what? What do you think about that?
Wow, that's interesting. I think it really highlights the complexities, when you're making a documentary, especially when you're dealing with a topic that could be sensitive or controversial.
Yeah.
So she has to deal with not just how do we film this, the logistics, but also like all the opinions and potential conflicts within the team itself.
Right. It's like navigating all these different personalities. And then on top of that, she had some real skin in the game, right?
Yeah.
She sold her house to actually fund this whole project.
Oh, wow.
That's commitment, right?
Oh, that's huge. Yeah, that really speaks to how much she believed in the power of Granny D's story. Like she was determined to get this out to a wider audience.
Yeah, and that's something that's essential for so many independent filmmakers, especially when they're tackling topics that may not be like super mainstream.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's almost like, in a way, she became an activist herself, right? Like fighting for the right to tell this story.
That's a great point. Yeah.
And in the end, she succeeded. Yeah. The film actually ended up winning awards and was used in schools and all sorts of things. What do you think contributed to it being so successful?
Well, first of all, I think Allegra's passion for the project really comes through.
Right.
But beyond that, I think it really captured the spirit of Granny D and her activism, like that unwavering belief that even an ordinary person can make a difference. And I think that really resonated with audiences.
Yeah, for sure. And it also, it sparked all these conversations about campaign finance reform.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a great example of how these documentaries, they're not just entertainment. They can actually be a tool for social change.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit.
Yeah.
Our next deep dive takes us to the world of Dance with Thomas.
Okay.
Who's a former intelligence officer. Get this, he discovered this whole passion for dance in his 50s.
Wow, that's fantastic. I love that it's just such a good example of how our identities aren't fixed.
Totally.
Like we can grow and change and discover new passions throughout our whole lives.
Absolutely. And he didn't just take a few classes. He actually became a core member of this professional dance company.
Wow.
Yeah, like performing on stage and everything.
That's incredible.
I wonder what drew him to dance so intensely at that point in his life.
It makes me wonder if it was maybe a way for him to tap into a different side of himself.
Oh, interesting.
One that maybe wasn't really nurtured during all those years in intelligence work.
Yeah.
Because dance requires vulnerability expression, a connection with your body, all those things that, might not have been encouraged in his previous career.
Right. And it's so interesting because it's almost like he traded this rigidity and this control of, that intelligence world for the freedom and the fluidity of dance.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I can only imagine what his family must have felt.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I'm sure they were pretty surprised.
Yeah, but it's a great testament to his courage to just embrace this radical change and really just defy those societal expectations of what someone his age is supposed to be doing.
Totally, yeah.
And it wasn't just a personal journey either. He actually incorporated some of his physical limitations. He has scoliosis into his dance and actually turned them into strengths.
Wow, how did he do that?
I'm not sure of the specifics, but I just think it says a lot about his approach to life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like turning those limitations into advantages.
It shows incredible adaptability, I think, and a willingness to embrace challenges rather than letting them define him.
Yeah, and it really resonates. I think a lot of people, as they get older, they find they need to adapt their activities.
Yeah, right.
And it's kind of like he's showing that limitations can be a source of creativity, not a barrier.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder if embracing limitations like that, whether they're physical or societal even, can actually unlock a new level of artistry.
That's a great point.
Okay, so for our last deep dive, we're going to meet Loretta's, who found her calling as a pie maker after 9/11. What struck you about her story?
You know what really resonated with me is how she took this personal tragedy and turned it into this opportunity to do something really positive for her community.
Yeah.
Like, in the face of all this national grief and uncertainty, she chose to create a space where people could connect and find a little bit of comfort.
And she did it with pie. It's such a simple concept, but it became so much more than just dessert.
I know, right?
Right.
Pie, represents comfort home connection in a lot of cultures, and I think she really tapped into that
Yeah.
and created this place where people could gather, share stories, and just feel a sense of belonging.
Yeah, it must have been like a refuge for people during that time.
I bet.
What do you think it was about her pies that made them so special?
Well, of course they were made with fresh ingredients and a lot of love.
Yeah.
But I think it goes even beyond that.
Yeah.
They kind of represented this connection to something familiar and comforting in a time when everything felt upside down.
Yeah, like a little piece of normalcy.
Ex-
Yeah, it's almost like they became a symbol of resilience. Like a reminder that even when things are tough,
Yeah,
there's still some sweetness to be found in life.
I love that.
Right. And it makes you appreciate the power of food to bring people together and create that sense of community.
It really does.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got Allegra the filmmaker, driven by this incredible story, Thomas the dancer defying expectations, and Loretta the pie maker creating this haven.
And what's so fascinating is that they all found their purpose later in life.
Yeah.
And then used that passion to make a difference in the world.
Absolutely. And speaking of defying expectations, we haven't even touched on Naomi's journey yet,
Oh, yeah.
which, as I understand it, involves a nudist community and a whole quest for erotic art.
Oh, my goodness. You are in for a treat.
I know, right?
Her story is full of surprises, but before we get to that, I think it's important to pause for a second and reflect on what we've learned from Allegra Thomas and Loretta.
That's a great idea. What do you think? What really stands out to you?
Well, each of them had to overcome obstacles and societal expectations to follow these passions. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's really inspiring to see that they didn't let age or their circumstances dictate their path. They each found a way to really express themselves and make a positive impact.
I agree. They really highlight this idea that it's never too late to chase your dreams and that sometimes fulfillment can come from the most unexpected places.
Absolutely. And they also remind us that it's okay to step outside of our comfort zone, challenge those societal norms a little bit.
And that the journey with all of its twists and turns is just as important as the destination.
So true. Okay, I'm ready. I want to hear about Naomi.
All right, let's dive into her world.
From Holocaust survivor to erotic art museum curator, it sounds like a life less ordinary.
It is. And the journey from the horrors of World War II to this world of art and self-expression is truly remarkable.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, so where do we even begin with Naomi's story? I mean, we talked about finding your passion later in life, but her journey starts with surviving the Holocaust. Like, that's a whole other level of resilience.
Yeah, it really is. It makes you think about things differently, to go through something so horrific and then to create a life that's full of art and passion. It's really incredible.
So let's go back to the beginning. I know she was born in Poland before the war. What was her life like before everything changed?
Right. So she was born in 1934 in a town called Otwock. It was near Warsaw, and it had a really big Jewish community. And by all accounts, she had a happy childhood. She was surrounded by family and friends. Her life was full of warmth and tradition.
It's hard to even imagine that world just being shattered.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking when the Nazis invaded Poland in 1939. Life for Jewish people changed drastically, and Naomi's family, like so many others, was forced into the Otwock ghetto, and they were subjected to just awful conditions, constant fear.
I can't imagine what that must have been like for a young child, to have your world shrink down to this confined space just filled with uncertainty and fear.
It was dehumanizing. It stripped away people's dignity and basic freedoms, and Naomi witnessed things that no child should ever have to see, the disappearances, the constant threat of violence. It left a mark on her.
And tragically, her family wasn't spared the horrors of the concentration camps.
No, in 1942, Naomi and her family were deported to Treblinka, which was one of the most notorious Nazi extermination camps. It was designed for mass murder, where people were systematically stripped of their identities and killed.
It's hard to even comprehend the scale of the tragedy that happened in those camps. To think that Naomi endured that, lost her entire family.
It really shows the strength of the human spirit that she even survived. The conditions in Treblinka were beyond brutal hunger disease, and the constant threat of death were just part of daily life.
It's almost impossible to grasp how someone can move forward after going through such profound loss and trauma.
And yet she did. After being liberated from the camp in 1944, she eventually made her way to the United States, where she had some relatives. So imagine starting over in a new country with a new language and carrying the weight of such a heavy past.
It must have felt like a completely different world. Did she ever talk about that transition?
She did, and it wasn't easy. Of course, the trauma of her experiences stayed with her, but she also had this remarkable ability to find joy in the simple things she talked about: the kindness of strangers, the feeling of sunshine on her face after years of darkness.
That resilience is incredible. It makes her later journey into the world of erotic art even more fascinating.
Yeah, there's definitely a connection there. It's almost as if after having her body and her identity violated in such a horrific way, she sought to reclaim them through art that celebrates the human form and sexuality.
That's a really interesting perspective. It wasn't just about collecting pretty pictures, it was about reclaiming something that had been taken from her.
Exactly. And remember, this was in the 1990s, a time when open discussions about sexuality, especially for women, were still kind of taboo.
So she was challenging societal norms on multiple levels. First, by embracing her own sexuality, and then by creating a space where others could engage with erotic art.
Absolutely. She refused to let the darkness of her past define her present or her future, and her museum, in a way, became a celebration of life, a testament to the power of the human spirit to find beauty and pleasure even in the face of adversity.
It's a powerful reminder that our experiences, no matter how difficult, can shape us in profound ways, and that sometimes the most unexpected paths can lead to the greatest discoveries.
Speaking of unexpected paths, how do you think Naomi's husband Siggy reacted to her passion for erotic art?
Well, from what I understand, he was a big banker, fairly conservative. I can't imagine he was thrilled about her collecting, let alone creating a whole museum dedicated to it.
You're right, he wasn't. In fact, he never even knew the full extent of her collection. She kept it separate from their life together, almost like a secret garden she retreated to.
That's so intriguing. Did she ever talk about why she kept it hidden from him?
She did. And it wasn't about shame or embarrassment. She simply knew he wouldn't understand, and she didn't want to cause conflict or upset him. She respected their different perspectives, even if it meant keeping a part of herself hidden.
It makes you think about the compromises we make in relationships and how we navigate our individual passions while trying to maintain harmony.
It's a delicate balance for sure, and sometimes it requires creating boundaries and spaces where we can express ourselves fully, even if it's not always shared with our partners.
And for Naomi, that space became her museum, a place where she could finally share her passion with the world on her own terms. But how did she go from a private collector to the founder of a museum? That's a huge leap.
It is, and it wasn't something she planned. It started organically, almost by accident. She had amassed such a large and diverse collection that she needed more space to house it.
So it wasn't about making a grand statement or seeking fame.
Not initially, it was more about practicality and a genuine desire to share her collection with others. But as the project evolved, it became something much bigger. It became a statement about art, sexuality, and the freedom to express oneself without shame or judgment.
It sounds like the museum was more than just a building. It was a culmination of her life experiences, her journey from darkness to light, from repression to liberation.
Beautifully put, and it all started with a simple request from her son to find him a piece of erotic art.
Wow, that's amazing. It just goes to show that the most unexpected journeys can lead to the most extraordinary destinations. But before we explore the museum itself, let's pause here and reflect on Naomi's story so far.
I think it's important to acknowledge the depth of her journey. From the horrors of the Holocaust to the challenges of rebuilding her life in a new country to finding love and creating a family, her story is a testament to the human capacity for resilience and reinvention.
Yeah, and it also highlights those complexities of identity and the ways we navigate our personal passions within the context of our relationships and societal expectations.
And ultimately, it reminds us that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can find ways to express itself, to heal, and to create beauty.
So true. Okay, let's move on to the creation of the World Erotic Art Museum and the impact it had on Miami Beach and beyond. What do you think motivated Naomi to take that final step and share her collection with the public?
I think it was a combination of factors. She had a genuine desire to educate people about the history and diversity of erotic art, to challenge societal taboos, and to create a space where sexuality could be explored and celebrated in a respectful and meaningful way.
That sounds like a pretty radical concept, especially for Miami Beach in the early 2000s.
It was, but Naomi, even in her 70s, wasn't afraid to push boundaries and challenge the status quo. She had a mischievous twinkle in her eye and a sharp wit that disarmed even the most skeptical critics.
I love that. Sounds like she was determined to have fun and make a statement at the same time.
Oh, she was a force to be reckoned with, that's for sure. And her museum became a symbol of that rebellious spirit, a place where people could come together to appreciate art, engage in open dialogue, and maybe even challenge their own preconceived notions about sexuality and the human body.
So it became more than just a museum, it became a cultural hub, a place where art and social commentary intersected.
Exactly. And it all started with a woman who refused to be silenced, who used her passion and her own life story to spark conversations and challenge conventions.
What an inspiring legacy. Now, I'm curious to hear about the public's reaction to the museum. Did it face any pushback from the community?
Oh, absolutely. It was Miami Beach, after all, a place known for its vibrant nightlife and anything goes attitude. But even there, a museum dedicated to erotic art raised some eyebrows.
I can imagine. So how did Naomi handle the controversy?
With her signature blend of humor and conviction, she embraced the nickname granny porn and used it to her advantage, turning it into a playful way to disarm critics and engage the public.
That's brilliant. She really understood the power of owning your narrative and not taking yourself too seriously.
And it worked. People were drawn to her charisma and her genuine passion for the subject matter. She wasn't afraid to talk about sex and sexuality in an open and honest way, which was refreshing for a lot of people.
So in a way, she became a cultural icon, challenging taboos and promoting open dialogue about a subject that's often shrouded in secrecy and shame.
Exactly. She created a space where people could feel comfortable exploring their own sexuality and appreciating the beauty and diversity of the human body.
What a remarkable achievement. I'm so glad we had the opportunity to deep dive into her story. It's been an incredible journey so far.
It really has. From the tragedy of her childhood to the unexpected discovery of her passion for erotic art to the creation of this groundbreaking museum. Naomi's life is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of art to heal, transform, and inspire.
It also makes you wonder about all the hidden stories and untapped potential that exists within all of us.
Absolutely. And maybe Naomi's story can serve as a catalyst for others to embrace their own passions, no matter how unconventional they may seem, and to find ways to make a positive impact on the world.
We've talked about Naomi's incredible resilience, her journey,
Yeah.
from surviving the Holocaust to finding solace and expression in erotic art. It's amazing how she created this space for herself in a world that often tries to silence those kinds of conversations.
Yeah, it really speaks to her strength and her refusal to be defined by what society says is okay, you know? She took something deeply personal and turned it into a platform for education, challenging the way we think about art, sexuality, and freedom of expression.
And the museum itself, the World Erotic Art Museum in Miami Beach, is fascinating. It's not just a collection of, provocative images. It's a journey through history and culture.
Exactly. You'll find ancient artifacts from cultures that were very open about sexuality alongside contemporary pieces that push boundaries and challenge our perceptions. It's a diverse and thought-provoking collection that really gets people talking and questioning their own assumptions.
It sounds like she really wanted to destigmatize the conversation around sexuality, to make it something we could appreciate and discuss openly.
Absolutely. She believed that by understanding the history and diversity of erotic art, we could break down those societal taboos and create a more open and accepting world.
Did she face any opposition to the museum? I imagine not everyone in Miami Beach was thrilled about having a museum dedicated to erotic art.
Oh, there was definitely pushback. Some people saw it as obscene or inappropriate, but Naomi never wavered in her belief that art, even erotic art, has the power to educate and enlighten.
It must have taken a lot of courage to stand up to those critics and fight for her vision.
It did, but she had this remarkable ability to disarm people with her humor and her genuine passion for the subject matter. She often joked that she was granny porn, turning a potential insult into a badge of honor.
That's so Naomi. She didn't shy away from the controversy. She embraced it, and in doing so, she made the conversation more accessible and less threatening.
Exactly. And by doing that, she opened minds and created a space where people could engage with these topics in a safe and respectful way.
It's inspiring to see how she took something that could have been seen as taboo or scandalous and turned it into a force for positive change.
Yeah, her story is a powerful reminder that we all have the power to challenge norms, spark conversations, and make a difference in the world, regardless of our age or background.
It's been incredible diving into these stories today. From Allegra's fight to tell Granny D's story, to Thomas's embrace of movement and self-expression, to Loretta's creation of that haven of comfort and community, and finally to Naomi's bold journey into the world of erotic art. They've each left me feeling so inspired.
What connects these stories is the courage to embrace your passions, challenge societal expectations, and find ways to make a positive impact. Their lives were far from ordinary, each filled with unique challenges and triumphs.
It really makes you think about what truly matters in life, doesn't it? It's not about fitting into a mold or following a prescribed path, but about finding what sets your soul on fire and pursuing it.
Yeah, and they remind us that it's never too late to reinvent ourselves, discover new passions, and use our voices and our experiences to make a difference no matter how big or small.
Absolutely.
Ah.
I hope our listeners walk away from this deep dive feeling empowered to embrace their own journeys, chase their dreams, and make their own unique marks on the world.
And to remember that life is full of surprises, and sometimes the most unexpected paths lead to the most extraordinary destinations.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the lives of these incredible individuals. We'll be back next time with more fascinating stories and insights. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.